It's just minimal. It sounds like building noise.
Gotcha. So I've got right underneath me is our kitchen, and they have to leave the hood going. I've been shutting it off, and they got mad at me because I shut off the hood because it takes them a while to warm it back up for school lunches. So for whatever reason, today it is like there's like a monster or something up there. It's
it's,
unbelievable.
it's it sounds like it sounds a little bit like the muffled sound of the
Yeah,
inside of an airplane cabin.
that's what it feels like. Thankfully, from what I can tell, so I went and did like just a test recording to see. Like you don't really
Yeah.
hear it on the recording.
Right. Right.
So I mean, I'm not going to complain, but
Yeah.
it would be. All right, let's get this done. We're moving a little bit behind today, but we're
Yeah.
going to get rocking and rolling here quickly,
Yeah. We
right?
got a hard stop.
Got a hard stop. We'll just rock and roll. So I'm going to let me do this stuff real quick, and we appreciate everybody's patience today. Hey, sometimes man got to get his taxes did, you know what I'm saying?
For real. For real. Hey, when you got a guy that's got a PhD doing your taxes, you just get in when you can get in.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Yeah, we had a good conversation with him the other day. He was asking about what we're doing and the ministry we're doing, the Dillingham Group and Mobilized Church Network. He was super interested, so that was cool.
That's cool. Yeah, he sounded like he knew about it.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. That's
yeah.
awesome.
So we were supposed to have a 20-minute meeting. It ended up going almost over an hour.
Man,
So
that is so awesome. Hey, I was looking at your quarter zip, Nathaniel Rios, talking about looking sharp, looking fire. And
yeah. Hey, he
yesterday,
knows. Yeah.
bro, if anybody knows, Nathaniel Rios knows.
Oh, Rios, he knows,
Blue
man.
threads.
Right?
Yeah. Where is it? Is there a website? Is there a website to that? If you're still tagged into us, my brother, my friend, put a quick link in the comments to a website
Yeah.
or a place where people can check out some elevating threadology.
He's got some stuff going on, man, like really connected in the sports industry, and
I love it.
his kids are involved, which is really cool. Rios is a hustler, bro. He is a
Blue
hustling machine.
Blue Thread Project. See, that's what I said. It is Blue Thread Project, and it's elevated threadology.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful.
There it is, bluethreadproject.org. You got that, man, that quarter zip on yesterday. Yesterday I got in the mail.
Yeah.
You know that stuff I've been pushing, built, BYLT, built.
Right. Sure.
I got a built quarter zip. So I'm going to run over here to Blue Thread while we're on the phone. Threadology. That's bro. Hey, let me tell you something right now. We were talking already on our Mobilized Church Network text thread about how it's tricky to rock a rhyme, and sometimes you just have to have an inclination to wordsmithness. That will be
Absolutely.
used. That's right. Elevated threadology. That's what I'm talking about, man. Just hey, hang around. We'll do great things together.
Marketing genius right here. Marketing genius. Elevated threadology. Yeah, we talk about all kinds of stuff in the network, don't we?
Oof, it's fun.
J1s, like, bro, we were rocking it today.
Hey, I'm telling you right now, I almost was thinking for a moment that Jay Jones was actually like a rapper in his former life.
Right?
Because he was weaving together. He was weaving together sort of some foundational rap genre, like conceptual. He wasn't just staying in one lane. Like he was pulling together.
He's bringing it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're waiting for you to bust out the Run DMC athletic gear. They don't know,
bro.
Don't bust out and dilly dally.
I run down the alley. I bumped in my old girl Sally from the valley. Now this is the girl who played Hard to Get, and I said, "What's wrong?" Because she looked upset. She said, "It's all because of you."
I knew it was coming, bro. I knew it was coming. I bust out with Roland in my 5.0 with my rag top down so my hair can blow. Better just stop there before we get in too much trouble.
Better stop.
Oh man. All right. We've got people coming on, which we appreciate. We're late, but we appreciate everybody being on. And Jay Hummel he's in the comments. We may Jay Hummel just bust out a little rhyme, just freestyle a little bit.
But he's legit though.
Hummel can get it done. So Jay Jones. Oh, that's cold-blooded, Jay Jones. That's hurtful, man.
Back when the rap was wrote.
Yeah, that's right.
Back when the rap was wrote, it was.
I had the Vanilla Ice hairdo, man, shaved on the sides, just a mile high. So, yeah, that's hurtful. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Vanilla Ice.
Oh, man. All right, you ready to go? Hit the share button, people. Hit the share button. I mean, they've just missed so much content. Michael Hanks. That's right, Michael Hanks. Check yourself, Jay, before you wreck yourself.
Oh, man.
It's gonna be off the rails today. It's gonna be off the rails. All right, here we go. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. We're gonna go. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mobilized Church Podcast. This is Chris Dillingham alongside my big brother, Ken Dillingham Jr. the third. Good morning, Ken. What's happening with you on this beautiful Tuesday? Hey, today's spring.
Bro, that is
spring.
I don't know. People been talking about the funk shizzle.
Yeah.
I will promise you that whatever that is, today is it.
Today is it. It's an amazing
if there is
day.
A seasonal funk shizzle, it is today.
Yeah, K Dilly Funk Shizzle. And I don't know about you, bro, but I'm still kind of recuperating. I'm gonna just tell you right now, the first weekend of March Madness,
bro,
it's really amazing how much basketball I watch in 4 days.
Bro.
It's unbelievable.
My wife said at 2:00 in the morning, she said, I'm twitching. She said, you're sound asleep, just twitching.
You were hitting that jumper, and here's what's sad. So we've got a family bracket, right? So for bragging rights, a little family bracket. And I watch more basketball than any human being that I know, right? And at one point during the first, like I don't know, halfway through the second day, so the first round of the tournament, my daughter was in like 10th place out of 150 people in this bracket, right?
Right.
And I was 145th. My daughter watches zero basketball. It took her 5 minutes to fill out a bracket. I spent about an hour and a half filling out my bracket. It's crazy. So it has turned.
I know, but the thing about it is though, and sometimes you can outthink yourself. Like I totally outthought myself. I'm like, okay, look, this isn't the same Purdue team. They've got, their big man is matured, and I just don't think he can be stopped. And I'm like, there's no way they're going to go out 13, 15, and 16 seeds 3 years in a row. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just pull them as the dark horse. Everybody's thinking Houston, Alabama. I'm going to come in the back door.
Bro,
I overthought it.
Listen, you got the tallest team in the country against the shortest team in the country, and you
can't push the ball inside.
You can't give the ball to the man down low in the last 5 minutes of the game. He didn't touch the ball or something down low. Like, come on, y'all. I did call.
That's just bad coaching. That's just bad coaching.
Absolutely. I did call Furman. I know you questioned that, but I did
I
call Furman.
Well, no, I didn't. I don't ever question anything you do as it relates to NCAA basketball. There's no questioning going on. I just simply said, "What was your thinking? What was
Yeah.
your reasoning?" That was all I was saying. And tell them what you told me.
The matchup against Furman is one of the highest scoring teams in the country. And Virginia has a lot of trouble scoring the basketball.
Yep.
And so my thought was everything that I read about Furman, of course, I hadn't seen Furman play, but everything that I read, they shoot a high percentage, they play really good defense, and they can score. And I'm like, man, if they get out in front of Virginia, Virginia's going to have a hard time coming back on them, which is pretty much kind of what played out. Like Furman, was able to hang with them offensively and then just made enough plays down the stretch. And what a shot, bro. What a shot.
Hey, it's like our dad used to say, people who want to know, like, where do these guys, why are they always, it's in our genetics.
It's just in us, man.
If you don't understand it, it's hard to understand. I sent a sweet, cool jacket that the coaches, do you see it? The coach's jacket?
Yeah.
So we sent that in the group. And with dad being a coach, and I remember one of the statements that, because it was funny because you said Furman can really they can really throw up the points.
Yeah.
And dad one year, I remember him saying, I get it. He's like, I get it. Defense wins championships, but scoring wins games. So you better have a pretty balanced everything.
I mean, that's right. And that's Purdue's deal. Like if you can't score the basketball, and I do feel bad for them because they're like the kid's name's Lawyer or whatever it is. I think it's a Lawyer.
Yeah.
Man, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He's been lights out all year long.
Yeah. You've watched him some Big Ten games, and they just three people to pieces.
Yeah.
Like they've got three guys that can just shoot threes, and they start passing the ball around, and they start playing that inside out game. They bump it into Edie. That's what they weren't doing, and that's what drove me crazy.
I know.
Swing it to the wing, pump it inside. They're sucking everybody down on him. Let him turn and kick it out to the top of the key, and you start throwing down some threes, and you start playing that inside out game, and they have no chance to stop you.
No shot. And I literally think if Purdue gets through that one, I do think they go on a run. But man, you got to love the little dude, the little 5'8" guy on that team. He's the fastest player I've ever seen in my life, dude. That dude's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Got to give him a big time shout out to
that. Was like Speedy Gonzalez. He looked like Speedy Gonzalez out there.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
Andale.
Well, we could spend the whole hour talking about basketball.
Why don't
we should sometime.
Why don't we we'll talk about, let's talk about elevated threadology and NCAA March Madness. We could take up a whole.
Right?
Yeah.
For real. Well, I'll direct people. Reese has a podcast that they do, and it's called Goal to. I'll find it. And get it out to people. Check it out, man. They talk a lot about Illinois sports, but it's about all kinds of sports in general. So you go check that stuff out, and we could do this. We could do this all day talking about sports, but that's not why we're here, Ken. And we're here. We're a little late, but we're here. We made it. We appreciate everybody jumping on. And before we get going, man, hit the share button if you guys don't mind, and just kind of get the word out so people can watch us on Facebook Live. And man, certainly thankful, Ken. I do want to just mention real quick, the numbers on the podcast are just bananas right now.
It is crazy.
And people need to go. If you didn't catch us last week, our interview with Pastor Jason West from San Jose was awesome. It's blowing up. We're getting tons of
crazy
downloads and listens and whatever. So go check that one out for sure.
Brother Roger Pryor from our church preached on Sunday night in Sydney.
Yeah.
And basically referenced him and that podcast like 6 times. It's so funny. And he was preaching. He said, I'm the guy, he said, man, you talk about people coming from a long way away from Jesus. He's like, man, bro, he said, everywhere I go, like if we go on vacation and we go to a church, he said, everybody comes to me and tries to pray me through. Look, the dude's a preacher, right? But he's got the tattoo that goes up his neck. He's like, everywhere I go. I said,
that's awesome.
He said, like, you could be like, churches have evangelists to come in for folks to get the Holy Ghost, you could be the Holy Ghost recipient guy. You just
Just go get
travel.
it all the time.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
funny. But he
That's
referenced
lit.
that just over and over and over, because just this idea of saying, man, you're not handicapped because you can't afford a building, or you can't. It's those kinds of situations that I think, and maybe that this might be a segue into today's conversation.
Yeah.
But I think it's those kinds of situations that when we say, is it scalable? That's the question. Is it scalable? You look at your model, you look at whatever it is, your church planting model, your missional model, or whatever. And my question is, does it work everywhere, in every circumstance, in every demographic condition? And if you could say yes, then you've got kingdom principles. You don't have a program.
Man, absolutely. And that's what we've been in search of, right? That's what we've been looking for. Is it scalable? And I think our experience, and it does segue perfectly into what our conversation is going to be about today, because we're going to share a little bit about our story. I'll mention that here in just a second, but kind of what got us down this journey was looking at it and saying, the model that we have it's not going to get the job done because it's not scalable. There's no way we can replicate that. And I don't see that in the New Testament. I don't see that in the book of Acts. And so what we want to talk about today, Ken, is we've of course, this is episode 134, I think. Yeah, right. Episode 134. And appreciate everybody that's been with us on this journey. And man, they've
been with us. They've been honest.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly. For real. So we appreciate everybody who's been with us on the journey, and we love doing this podcast and just having the conversation with, and the interaction, the discussion, the chat, all that kind of stuff is just amazing. And so over the course of the last couple of years, we've shared a lot of principles, a lot of concepts. You're a content generating machine. And so you presented just some amazing, just conceptual things that people can grab a hold of. It's like Velcro, right? Like you can tell
people all the time, you got to give people mental Velcro.
Yep. So we've done a lot of that. We had a lot of those conversations, but at the end of the day, right, we've talked about statistics, we've talked about trends, we've talked to leaders and pastors, but at the end of the day, stories tell the story.
Ooh, that's it.
Stories tell the story, right? So what we want to do today is not get into the weeds of like technical aspects of discipleship and multiplication, and there'll be some of that, but really kind of talk about just some of the experiences, some of the things that we've learned along the way, and more importantly, I think one of the challenges sometimes, Ken, when we talk about discipleship and we talk about multiplication, the unfortunate thing is, and this is not just relegated to our tribe. We've been in meetings with what would be described by their leaders as the most missional or most multiplying churches in America, right? And we've heard him say, Exponential Conference, in one of our cohorts, we heard him say there aren't really any examples of multiplication in the Western culture, right? Hold on, you got to hit the unmute button, bro. It's so awesome.
We have a school. I know, right? We have a school, and I heard him coming down the hallway, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to. He's going, man. He's going, and I don't want to stop him. I don't want to slow him down. But no, man. And the thing about it is not just in our tribe, like what you're talking about, not really seeing a true multiplication movement, not just in our tribe, but broadly in the Western, North America and the Western world, not seeing multiplication in really any kind of denominational context. Right. And you can't count. People are like, yeah, but what about mega churches? Well, you can't really quote mega churches,
right?
Because what have we said? Sorry about the statistics. 1 out of 10 of the growth, on average, 1 out of 10 of the growth of megachurches from 1970 to the year 2000. 1970, there were 150 megachurches. It had grown to 1,200 by the year 2000. But when they look back in around 2012, they look back on those numbers and they said, only out of 10 were from baptisms, and there was close to a 30-mile radius. And so, so you look at that and you say, well, then that's clearly not a multiplication movement, right? It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know, sheep shifting or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Well, and we were at Exponential, and I remember I who was, I can't remember who was doing the introduction. Was it Michael Frost or somebody,
I don't
or
remember.
Ed Stetzer? Maybe it was Ed Stetzer, but was doing the introduction, and they were like, "How many of you have heard of Matt Chandler?" It's like, "Oh yeah." How many of you have heard of
Yeah.
Brian Houston? How many of you have heard of Ferguson?
It wasn't it. Are you going Ralph Moore on
Yeah.
me? Bro, it's Alan Hirsch,
Oh,
dude.
Alan Hirsch. That's who it was. That's who it was.
Yeah,
Alan
it
Hirsch.
was Alan
Right. It was Alan
Hirsch.
Hirsch. I had Michael Frost in
This
my
is
head.
such a great story. No, that's true. Hirsch and Frost are buddies, but no, this is such a great story. Yeah, it was Hirsch.
So hope we don't offend anybody with this, but he's like, you know all of these names. If I mention some of these popular names, like everybody would know them.
J.D. Greer, Matt Chandler, who knows?
Yeah, J.D. Greer, exactly.
Yeah,
so then he's like, how many of you know Ralph Moore? Not one person in the whole place hardly raised their, I mean, just dead silence. And he's like, people, this is Ralph freaking Moore. Like, this is the guy. He is what the experts who study this have said. He's the only example of multiplication in Western culture that they can find. If I remember right, Ken, they have traced back 2,500.
That's what was in my head. My head was saying somewhere between 2,300 and 2,500 church plants from their main,
which he started in Hawaii, Honolulu, I think, and started there and launched them out. And they asked Ralph Moore how many he thought they had, and he was like, I don't know, maybe like 40 or something like that.
He did.
He didn't even know all of these that birthed this multiplication movement of one that started, right?
That's why he's Ralph freaking Moore, by the way. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're just quoting. We're just quoting Alan.
Just quoting Alan.
Okay, we're not getting edgy in our language here.
And not trying to be offensive with that, but that's what he said. So to introduce Ralph Moore, and so the reason we bring that up is because what I was getting to was sometimes it's hard to explain because there's not anything, there's not a lot, to present. Like, this is what it is. This is what it's going to look like. This is how it's going to happen.
Models or examples, right?
And that's why I think the stories are so important, Ken. I think that's why we felt it was important for us to go on this journey before we started sharing, because our vision has always been, to share, to do ministry together. God connected us as brothers to do ministry together, but it's always been our passion to help just in the mission together and to help others. We're not experts. We don't have everything figured out, but one of the things that we recognized was we've got to go down this road. We've got to experience this so we can say to people, like, look, this is what it's going to be. This is obviously contextually, it's going to look different for each person, but to be able to show them it's possible to go down this road of multiplication without compromise, without cashing in our values and saying, well, we'll just sell out as long as we have growth. Like, how do we stick to our values and experience multiplication? I think that's been a critical part of this journey for us.
Man, that's so true. And it's, and the thing is I love the example. And man, I'm pretty sure that they're referring to Ralph Moore, actually, in Ed Stetzer and Warren Bird's book, Viral Churches.
Yeah, Viral
Which is a book that I would suggest that's a book that I would suggest everybody just pick up and read. It's an easy read, and it's like super inspiring. It's more descriptive than prescriptive.
Yeah.
Which if you've already bought into the principle that we need to have a multiplication movement.
Sure.
If you've already sort of reconciled in your mind, I don't want to keep doing what we're doing, man. There's a point at which you basically, you cut bait and you say, this lure isn't working. It might've worked, when I fished here, when I was a kid, it might've worked. And so you just cut bait and you go, I'm going to do something different. If you're sold on that, then you don't always need somebody to give you a prescriptive, which is, going back to our story, it's kind of what we try to do. We don't want to give people so much, and there is some prescriptives in the sense of the application of principles. But at the end of the day, in the book Viral Churches, when they explain, they bought this piece of property and it couldn't be built on because there was the water came down from the mountain there in Honolulu, and so they weren't able to, the ground wasn't able to soak in all that water. And so basically it was a lot of property, a lot of valuable property in Honolulu, but it wasn't buildable. And so they got together and they found that the University of Hawaii or whatever had found this particular plant that is able to absorb 4 times its weight in water or something like that,
Yeah.
and able to dissipate it into the air. And when it becomes oversaturated. And so this particular plant, though, is extremely expensive, and it was going to take them literally $1 million to buy enough of these plants to fill this area so that it would absorb enough water that it would make that property buildable. And so they had an idea. They said, you know what? We believe in multiplication. We believe in, virility. So they actually asked people in their church to just simply take a 2x2 piece of their yard, 2 foot by 2 foot. And they gave everybody in the church a 1 foot by 1 foot thing of this plant. And they asked everybody in the church just to take that and multiply it in their yard. Yeah. Let the 1 foot become 2 square feet, 1 square feet to 2 square feet. And then when it did, they pulled that up and they took it and then they planted it and then they repeated. And they repeated, and for like chump change, they bought the plants that they needed that would have cost them $1 million.
Yeah.
By simply using the property and the homes of people to do multiplication. And Ed Stetzer says, when you start thinking multiplication, it crops up everywhere. And so he was giving that an example to say, here's a church that believes in multiplication of the mission. And they, just like they took this plant and multiplied this plant, it became something that, wow,
yeah.
It was, it was like this idea that says, not only is this the way that you do the impossible in Honolulu on a piece of property you can't build, it's also how we're going to do the impossible in reaching the world before the return of Jesus.
Man, that's so good, bro. That's such a, and it's the only way that it's going to happen. We've talked a lot about it, and one of the things I think that we've come to is a place of we're for anything that would work, right? Obviously within the value system of the kingdom. I'm not so. I'm going to make a statement, but I want people to understand, we're for, if a person goes in and traditionally plants a church, gets a building, and does it that way, we're not against that. But what I think what you're talking about is when you start looking at the need and what it's built on and all that kind of stuff, man, it's just so hard to continually reproduce that over and over again. And the model has become, I think the challenging part for me is the model has become, you got to get the dream team and get the right dream team together and pull all of them together and, have a, $5,000 a month rent payment to find a building or whatever. And can God do miracles? Absolutely. But the truth is, there are only so many dream team people, right?
So let me ask you something, Chris. I'm gonna throw a phrase that might be a little bit of mental Velcro here. Okay. When your need far and away exceeds your capacity,
right?
What do you do?
Right.
I think that's a question. That's a mental Velcro question. When the need far and away exceeds your capacity, what do you do? Because in that story of Viral Churches, Chris, basically their need was so far beyond their capacity that it was from every conventional wisdom perspective, it was an impossibility. Like, how many years is it going to take for you to amass $1 million? And the creative, stinking, amazing thinking, this innovative thinking said, wait a minute, it might be easier for us to multiply the plant than to multiply the money. And so they entered into, because we can't multiply money, but we can multiply the plant. And it's if we only have a limited capacity where the money is concerned, let us go to where we have, at least to some degree, unlimited capacity. Yeah. I mean, the only limitation we have in that is time. And I would say the same thing exists when we talk about doing the mission. So relative to what you were just saying, when you're saying, get you a dream team and and do this and do that and whatever, here's what I would say. I would say, okay, so but here's the deal. If the old church planting model was a $20 bill trying to make a $1 million payment, this is a $100 bill trying to make $1 million payment.
Right. Still short.
The need still far and away exceeds the capacity. So
and so the options become, well, let's just give up. I mean, if it's impossible, there's nothing we can do about it, so we quit. Or two, we were, and sadly, when you study church planting statistics, that's how a lot of church plants end up. We just can't do it. It's just impossible. So why even try? Let's just forget it.
Let's just do what we can do. It's beyond us.
Well, the second option is just resign yourself to the fact, well, we're always going to be this, and so there's limited potential, and so we'll just be this. Or the third option is looking for avenues, creative methods, creative ways that I believe are given to us biblically and scripturally. Culturally, we've done the other stuff, and it's limited in that. But biblically, God has given us the principles and the concepts that make reaching our world not just a pipe dream, not just hype. A lot of times we hear somebody talk about, we got to reach our world. And like, okay, yeah, we get that. That's hype. We're not going to reach our world and blah, blah, blah. But the mission should be 7 billion souls. It should be, our goal is, and responsibility is, to try to reach everybody everywhere. That's the mission of Jesus. And again, we see what the early church did, how they turned the world upside down. So I think we got to ask ourselves the hard questions, and this is what got us kind of down that track. But again, if you've only got Ralph freaking Moore as the only example, and then you've got some examples in South America, is major implications happening. African nations. You've got multiple, only Western cultures are not happening. So we've got to start really.
And people go, well, that's a whole different culture.
Right.
They excuse it, don't they?
Sure.
They excuse it. They're like, yeah, but that's just a fair comparison. Right. That's what that's what they've done to me.
100%.
Well, that's not even a fair comparison to talk about communist China. The average church planter in China is 21 years old, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's not even fair. That's an underground church in communist China. But they're experiencing multiplication. So they're saying that doesn't apply to us. And Chris, look, as you were talking, the thought hit me. At first, we may be inclined to say that it's a problem when we're looking to the same people who created the problem to create the solutions.
Right.
And I mean, okay, but I don't want to be offensive. Sometimes I am, but I don't want to be, and I don't want to be offensive. And so what I would prefer to say is maybe, okay, so this may be a better way to look at it. Yeah. Okay. The problem isn't even the methodology.
Yeah.
The complication is the massive demand in relationship to the capacity. Yeah. And so what we have to do is we have to look at it and say, rather than to say, one of these days we're going to come up with this genius plan and let's get all these people in the room, and let's take all these people that have, whatever, and let's create a model. Let's create a program. We're going to plant churches this way now, and this is going to be the answer. And the reality is that I don't think the problem was ever the model. The problem was that the capacity was so overwhelming that we basically were just simply choosing the better of worst models.
Absolutely. Your example of, instead of a $20 bill, it's a $100 bill to pay $1 million debt. I mean, that's a mental picture that people can grab a hold of. And that's at some point, the reason we bring this stuff up, because at some point we want people to be confronted with this reality, right? Like we need to be confronted with this fact that, man, we're trying, and I believe that a lot of the people that are doing it I know, we've been around them. They have the right intentions. They have the good heart. They
100%.
want it. They want to see it happen. And so we're not dogging anybody out for that. We're just saying, just saying the things that we have tried to do, which is exactly what you said, is improve the model, but the model is just inadequate. It's just never going to get the job done. And this is why we started down this journey. And so what I'd like to do today, Ken, is we certainly haven't arrived. And one of the things I think that I have learned in this process is, like, you don't hit a magical point and then you just kind of hit the coast button and you're like, whew, okay, we hit multiplication, so now we're good, right?
So
it's a constant process, and something that we really have to just keep focusing on and keep pushing on. But we have seen some amazing transformation in people, in the way we do church. We've seen great examples of multiplication. You've got some exciting things that are happening right now. And what we wanted to do today, what we talked about, was just kind of share, again, not trying to say like we've got it figured out, because we're still in the process. And I've resigned myself to the fact that until Jesus comes, this is just going to be a journey. It's just going to be something we're continually pressing towards. And it's so easy to kind of like go back to the ways that we were before and all that kind of stuff. But we've asked the Lord, God, give us multiplication, help us understand these principles. This is why we developed the map to multiplication, right? Because we wanted that Velcro to say, like, this is the journey we've been on. These are the principles and the concepts we're constantly tweaking and growing and trying to learn and whatever. But help us to experience it so we can say to others and show them, like, look, these are not just idealistic concepts. These are not just theories. Like, these are tried principles and proven. So maybe just share a little bit about some of the things going on and some of the things you've experienced, and what. So let me ask you the question: what does multiplication look like?
Wow, that's so good. So let me preface it by saying that I reiterate everything you just said. It's like a spiraling, it's like sort of the spiraling Y, the investigation that gets tighter and tighter and tighter until eventually we reach a point where we say, you're like, the moment that you start saying, we figured it out, then God starts spiraling it a little tighter and a little farther down, a little deeper. And he says, no, you figured that out. Now let's discover the answer to this. And then it's like, I figured it out. And then, so anyway, so it is that kind of a journey. So it's at first, I was very focused on when we started doing this. At first, I was very focused on trying to change our corporate culture. That's kind of what we do. You get up, you preach sermons, and it's like, I'm gonna change the church. We're gonna, and what I realized, and as we started discovering, you and I together, this idea that says, you really have to have two vehicles. I was talking to somebody last night, and I'm just going to use this as a sort of a launching point to give you some examples. But I was talking to somebody last night, and I said, he was having so one of our ministers, Aaron, was having a conversation with a guy he's discipling, Nathan. They went out to supper last night and they were talking, and they got to talking, and he said he basically looked at Aaron and he said like he had this far away distant look, and Aaron said, "What's the deal? What's going on?" And he goes, "I'm just realizing that where I need to be is a lot farther away than I thought I was." And like, so he's just like, he just got the Holy Ghost like 2 weeks ago, right? 3 weeks ago, maybe. And then he gets this revelation of the people of, wow. So I'm going to really have to become transformed, because here's what he said. He said, if all the miracles of Jesus didn't convince the people of his day, because he got on this bandwagon early on in his discipleship development. Well, if we just had all these miracles and whatever, then it'd just seal the deal and it would just settle it. And last night at supper, he said, actually, Jesus did all kinds of miracles and there were still people questioning. So then he asked the question. He said, so then how do we do it? How do we do it? If they still question Jesus and he had all these miracles or whatever, how do we do it? And they had this deep conversation about inner transformation and the working of the Spirit, and literally digging down into those places where people are able to disrupt and unseat unbelief and unbiblical thinking until that happens, until the will is submitted. So that's what it looks like on a personal level.
So good, man.
So right now, just real quick, just to, we've had over 104 first-time guests since January 1st. We're coming up on 50 people being baptized, coming up on 40 people receiving the Holy Ghost in the last 7 weeks. We have one couple who's a disciple-making couple right now who has four or five. One of them is kind of connected, so I'll just say four, who has four connections, 4 discipleship connections that here in the next couple of weeks, 2 of our disciple makers that were part of my City Barbecue disciple makers group are going to get together, and they're going to go and have like a dinner in one of these couples' barn, in this family in their barn. They're going to clean it out. They're going to have this deal. They're going to have dinner, and then they're going to have a time of just worship. They're going to take acoustic guitars and whatever, and they're going to kind of blend their X groups and whatever. And there's a potential of 50 to 100 people that are going to be a part of that.
That's amazing.
And these are.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's so good. I think we had a little glitch here, so we'll wait to get you back in. I think you're stuck there a little bit, so we'll just keep rolling, man. So many good things. I do want to mention just a couple of things here while we're kind of waiting for that to situate itself again here. Jared Staten makes a great point, and I love this. Fixing foundation before building walls is tricky when the wall exists. There's a lot of truth to that, bro. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, right? Is you're trying to go in and repair and replace and fix some foundations, but you've already got walls existing, and that becomes a real challenge. And again, that's why I think these stories, the things that we tell, the things that we share, are really important, because it shows that it can be done, that those things can happen. And one of the things, so I'll just share a little bit. Obviously those are great statistics. Somebody recently sent us a message and was asking kind of about, we've talked a lot about changing the scorecard, right? And there he is. He's back. Wow. He's back. He's back and better than ever.
First time that I've ever totally lost I think our internet went totally down. So my bad.
It went totally down. And just real quick, while you were gone, I was just sharing and I want you to finish kind of where you were. But one of the things, as you're talking there, that I want people to understand, somebody recently messaged us about the scorecard, right? And, and one of the things that I think has transformed for us has been the metrics, how we measure what success looks like. And so when you share these numbers, obviously we want people to get the Holy Ghost. We want people to get baptized. And the transformation, I think, for us has been we're not gonna just push those things just to see them happen.
100%.
We want to see them as the byproduct of discipleship relationships. And so for us, the scorecard, the win is what you're talking about. You've got 150 people or whatever it is of connections just with one couple that's bringing people together and those relationships. And for us, bro, we've gone from a situation. If I'm being like really transparent, right? Our church has gone from where most of our key people that are just on board on fire for God had maybe a total in the whole church of 10 real meaningful relationships outside the church. Now, they had connections, they had people that they knew, but as far as real deep friendships and relationships outside the church, I would say maybe 10. Right now, in our church, we probably have, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, and we try to track this for accountability's sake, whatever, but probably 250, maybe close to 300 deep, meaningful relationships.
Wow.
And so not all of those have produced discipleship relationships just yet.
Yeah.
But
but that was the same thing with us, Chris.
Yeah.
Same thing. We went through a season where there was a lot of relationship building, and I went to the Lord and I said, God, okay, now look, we're building relationships. We didn't have that before, but these relationships now have to become discipling relationships. And so through discipling those people and pushing them a little bit and saying, why hasn't, have you not found these people to be disciplable yet? And that's okay if that's true.
Yeah.
What are you doing about that? How are you praying? And no, you're right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Do you want to finish a little bit? You kind of broke up right at the end there as you're telling about that group.
Yeah. Well, it's so the point that I was making was that, they're having they're going to have a get together. There are people that live from different places, so that you got to be kingdom minded. There's some family that lives over by Newark, some family that lives over in the Columbus area, some, so I think it's important for you to be able to say, all of these people probably won't populate our church. That means that's why we have to have partnerships. So people are like, well, why do you guys have this network thing? This is the Mobilized Church Network. And well, because we want to have a network of like-minded churches, and we want to be able to have those connections and networks because we believe that missional overflow is bigger than just simply the next town over, which is sometimes the mentality of saying, which is fine. I mean, if you want to have a church planting mindset that says, the next city or the next town over, that's cool. But what if the overflow is like halfway across the state?
Yeah.
And so, and which is exactly what's going on here. In the combination of these two disciple makers connecting through their X groups or their multiplication groups and all of those connections, when you're looking at the potential of having a deal where you're having a dinner and having some worship and having just a kind of a group spiritual conversation, like I'm probably not even going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that we have to get to the point. This is my point that I'm making. That's just one example. We've got another disciple maker in the church that, we were trying to figure out in the last 4 to 6 weeks has brought 37 people.
That's amazing.
To church, which is not, again, like you said, that's not our scorecard. It's not an attendance thing. It's just simply saying, like you could say, well, you could say anything. Well, he is discipling and is, and he and his wife are connected to 37 different people that they're discipling and bringing them to truth and people getting saved or whatever. But if people in the church don't ever see it, they're like, well, so the reason why sometimes I reference that he's brought 37 guests over the last 4 to 6 weeks, not because of the scorecard, but because of the visibility of saying, yeah, it's true because I saw it.
Yeah. Right.
And
sure.
But here's the deal. I think that for me, it had to become this thing here. If we're going to multiply the needed plant, it's going to have to happen in people's yards. Was that you or me that
There he
left?
is. I'm not sure. Man, we're having some tech issues today. We've never had these
It
kinds of
says
tech issues, and we're having all kinds of tech today.
it's terrible. So anyway, so Chris, what I was saying was that the thing that I was making, and Reese, you're going to have quite a time
I
editing this
know,
today,
right? It's all
right?
good, man.
Yeah, right. It says was Chris is that his Cree frozen or just really still? But no, here's the deal. What I was saying was we're gonna have to believe, just like that needed plant multiplied in the front yards of the homes of people in that congregation. You're going to have to believe that multiplication is going to happen. It's going to happen in the front yards and in the living rooms and in the backyards and in the workplaces. And that's where multiplication is going to happen.
Absolutely, man.
And the thing about it is some old models say, yeah, but how do you control that? Which is why we say that's why it can't just simply be better forms of evangelism. That's why we talk about it has to be a change of the operating system, because all that has to be in
Man, our
place.
man Gary Gothier makes a great point, Ken. He says when the scorecard is building churches, we'll make that the end all be all. The church should serve the mission, not vice versa. And I think there's a good intention, and we've viewed the mission as building churches. And what you're talking about is the people that are here. Here's the deal: the people that are making disciples in our cultures are people that will probably never be church planters, right?
Not even close in our situation right now.
They're not going to launch churches. They're not going to plant churches, but they're living on mission, which is the answer, bro. This is the answer. If our only answer is a very minuscule number of men and women, husbands and wives, couples that feel called by God to go start a church in a place where you're never going to reach that. But
the capacity can't ever meet the need.
People within our church is the greatest resource that we have. And if we could launch them to live on mission, and this is why we wanted to tell these stories, because this is not just about some very elite couple that has great skill and talent, determination and perseverance, that is like, we're going to go do this and make this happen. These are regular people in the church that are just living on mission. They're seeing God do amazing things at our Lighthouse campus. It was kind of a church restoration type situation, and the numbers of our Sunday gathering attendance coming in and kind of taking the church, so it was necessary for us to kind of keep that part rolling. But what's happened in the last, so we started a discipleship gathering last year, right? So we had one discipleship gathering last year. Out of that, in particular, the whole group did amazing, and it was a major shift for them, a major transformation. But we had, in particular, one family that decided, man, I'm going to live on mission. They're connected to all kinds of people. This person is not, she's not going to be obviously a church planner or whatever, but she just feels called of God. Like, what God has done in me, I need to share with other people. Bro, she's discipling easily 20 people right now.
See that, and that's so. But isn't that amazing when you think about it? It's organic, and the thing is, to Gary's point, I want to kind of tie what you just said to what Gary Gothier said. The scorecard. If the scorecard's building churches, and we don't even have time to say, why is the scorecard building churches?
Yeah, right.
Because the answer to that is that basically the institutional church works at its self-perpetuation. That's you count churches and churches. And so we're going to try to get as many ministers as we can. And we're going to try to plant as many churches as we can plant. And it's all good. It's not, we're not throwing shade at anybody or anything. We're just simply saying, here's the deal. In the New Testament church, planting churches was not the goal. It was the result.
Sure. Yes.
Like what?
Yes.
Right. that's one of the reasons
Yes.
why I'm part, we're doing this, was my time spent in that area, in that arena. It caused me to say, I just said, look, I just don't think church planting can be a goal because uh like now, like, look, you could say, yeah, exactly. Jay Jones said lead measures versus lag measures. I mean, that's exactly right. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, is to simply say, yeah, we need more churches in more places. We're on the same team and we're on the same page with that.
Sure.
We're not saying, oh, that's just so dumb, they're trying to plant churches and da da da. That's not even close to what we're saying. We're saying, yes, we need more churches in more places. What we're saying is, getting to more places should be the result of missional overflow.
Yes. Yes.
It shouldn't be the result of saying, let's create an institutional program and model so that we can get the perfect people, the perfect team, the everything situated, and get them there so that we can set them up for success. Look, here's how you set people up for success. Teach them how to bear fruit.
Yes.
And when you start bearing fruit, listen, you know what's so crazy, Chris?
Yes.
You know what the overflow of the apple tree is? Apples.
More apples.
The overflow to the apple tree is apples.
Right.
You don't have
Right.
we don't just make it an apple tree.
Right.
Just make it an apple tree. And so what we're saying is if you can teach people all over, in every context, in every church, hey, you're an apple tree. And the expectation is you're going to produce apples, and you're going to produce more apples than we could put in our barn. And you're going to make more apples than we can eat. And you're going to make more, and we're going to have to share those apples. And in fact, some of those apples are going to show up in places we didn't expect, among people we didn't expect. Wow. We've got a church there. How'd that happen? Missional overflow.
Missional overflow. And I want to tie two comments together real quick. So some great discussion. Jared Staten, Gary Gauthier, Jay Jones. We got some great comments that are coming in. But one of the things that Jared Staten mentions is that it's a challenge to try to get traditional believers, Pentecostals, to live on mission. And that's kind of what our journey has been. Like, how do we do this? How do we get people? And our methodology for doing that has traditionally been guilt, shame, pressure, institutional methods, right? Outreach events, outreach efforts, that kind of stuff. And bro, one of the things that I would share, one of the great wins for us has been the answer to get people living on mission is to be the disciple component.
Yes.
Right? One of the great wins for us has been the radical transformation in our church culture that has moved people to being to truly every day being a disciple of Jesus, the way it's personally transformed them. And as they be the disciple, it's given them the heartbeat. And so tied to that, what Gary Gauthier said, what we're talking about, what we're doing, it works because everybody can build meaningful relationships. It doesn't take gifted evangelists or preachers to make it happen. And that's really, this is why we do every Tuesday. This is why we do the Mobilized Church Network. This is why we're so passionate about this, is because we believe the untapped potential inside the body of Christ, bro.
Read Jared Staten's last statement.
What'd he say? What'd he say? Teaching us to stop being the apple and become the tree. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, and I agree, like Jay Jones says, we're trying to grow when our job is to plant and water. And I would say yes, but in the right context, I think in some contexts, it's the difference between, I think we do need to make a differentiation between the goal being faithfulness or the goal being fruitfulness.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if the goal is faithfulness, then, it's what is the result of that faithfulness? Jesus, now faithfulness is a component. He says, he says, I'm the vine, you're the branches. Without me, you can't do anything. Right. So so we get our DNA. The vine produces the DNA for the branches. The branches don't do anything of their own. They just
Absolutely.
right. So it requires the new birth. So I think in that sense, I totally agree with that statement. We are to be apple trees, so we need to fertilize and water and just let it be what it is. But I also believe there's a point where you do have to sort of differentiate and say, look, your job is not just to be faithful. He says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, that's faithfulness.
Yeah.
But he says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, you will bear much fruit. So the result of faithfulness is fruitfulness. That's the result. And then he solidifies by saying, herein is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit. And so I think that when the end goal is you be faithful, and we'll let the super trained, like Gary was talking about, taking
Yeah.
gifted evangelists, gifted preachers. We'll take the gifted evangelists, gifted preachers, and they'll be the fruitful ones. You just be faithful.
Right.
And I think there needs to be a little bit of a transition where we don't just look at it and go, gifted preachers, gifted evangelists, they're going to be the fruit producers. You just be faithful and support them.
And I think that's why this conversation is so critical, Ken, today. I woke up this morning just feeling it so strong because what we want people to get is there are a lot of powerhouse people within our churches
Very true.
that will never preach a sermon, will never be just gifted evangelists, but they have the potential to live on mission and build relationships. And we're seeing that happen. It's
so true.
It's not just a theory. It's not just a concept or an idea. Like we're seeing it play out in people in our church. The Davises in your church, Roger Pryor, the Condons here.
Yeah.
I mean, we have it so much. We're seeing it begin to happen. And so we want people to know and understand, like, we're not just pitching a program or a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we want to share, again, stories tell the story. We want to share the stories of these are the things that we've experienced. Now, again, I want to reiterate, we're not there. We still have a long way to go, and we haven't experienced all of the multiplication that we want to happen. Do you want to mention that real quick about relationship builders?
Yeah, Jeffrey Glick just says gifted and popular people come and go. He said, but everyday disciples change the world. I totally agree with that, and that's that's kind of where the conversation is situated here today. That God uses the most unexpected people, and sometimes I think we misappropriate or become misguided in our belief that, if the thing that's causing the church to grow is how amazing and how impressive the machine is, then we need a lot of really gifted and talented people to work on the machine so that it can be bigger and better. And let's engineer it and program it into something more amazing than it ever was before. And at the end of the day, my thing is, what we're talking about, gifted and popular people come and go, everyday disciples change the world. Here's my point, bro. My point is that I've got some people that are in the church that I pastor that are literally better relationship builders than I am. There are people, dude, there are people that are there are people in our church that, they're not as good at preachers as I am. But if we're looking at fruitfulness in an area of missional fruitfulness, they can be, they can be as good in fruit bearing or at fruit bearing than I am, because they're well, first of all, not just simply because of the fact that they're as good at building relationships as I am, but because of the fact that they're embedded, where sometimes I'm not working a secular job. I'm fully supported by the church. And so I do the stuff that pastors are supposed to do, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, for me, I just think that, to sort of summarize this conversation, or to bring it, put the landing gear down and bring it to the runway. I just think that, people that are actually, out there where they learn, live, work, and play, they're surrounded by, engaging with people who are the harvest field, man, we can't just make them salesmen for the church. We can't just make them good inviters and teach them goals to get them here. We need to help them to say, you know what, you're an apple tree, and apple trees produce apples. And so we're going to cultivate that in their lives. So, man, it's been so amazing today, this discussion, and some really crazy technical difficulties today. First time probably in 2 years that we've had this amount of technical difficulties. But hey, I'm not going to blame it on the devil. We'll just say that it's modern technology. At the end of the day, we're so thankful that you come, that you join us. We're thankful for, we're thankful for all that you are and all that you do. Jay Jones comes back. Great point, bro. He said, point being, we can't control growth, only health. God brings growth. That's true. That's so true. It's the DNA of the apple tree. Very true. As long as we cause people to know what they are, help direct them, and then we grow and we cultivate that. Man, thank you for being on board. Go check us out on all the social media platforms. Go to, we both have personal accounts on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Go check us out there. And we also have a Dillingham Group account in all those places. We're excited to have you with us. And we'll be back next week at about 10 o'clock. Until then, go live mobilized.